Leadership skills. The Power of a Plate of Rice by Ifeoma Okoye. I walked hurriedly to Mr. Aziz's office, breathing heavily in steadily rising anger. The January sun was blazing in fury, taking undue advantage of the temporary withdrawal of the seasonal harmattan. As I arrived at the office, which was at the end of the administration block, I remembered one of Mother's precepts: do nothing in anger. Wait till your anger melts like thick palm oil placed under the sun. Mother was a philosopher of sorts. Poor woman, she passed away before I could reward her for all the sacrifices she made on my behalf, foregoing many comforts just so that I could get some education, and for carrying the financial burden of the family during my father's protracted illness and even after his premature death. In deference to Mother, I stood by Mr. Aziz's door for a few seconds, trying to stifle my anger, but failing woefully. Only an angel or an idiot would remain calm in my situation. At last I knocked on the mottled green door. Come in. Mr. Aziz's authoritative voice hit me like a blow, startling me. I opened the door and walked in, my anger still smoldering. Mr. Aziza, the principal of the secondary school where I was teaching, was seated behind a medium-sized desk made of cheap white wood and thickly coated with varnish. Books, files, letter trays, and loose sheets of paper jostled for a place on the desk. He raised his coconut-shaped head, closed the file he was reading, removed his plastic-framed spectacles and peered at me. Yes, Mrs. Cheta Adu. What do you want? His voice was on the defensive and the look on his ridged face was intimidating. We were paid irregularly. Although it was the end of January, the salary in question was for the October of the previous year. 4 months without any salary and yet we went to work regularly. Yes, I did, Mrs. Cheta Adu. Mr. Aziz's small, narrow eyes pierced me like a lethal weapon. As one teacher had put it, he paralyzed his prey with his eyes before dealing a death blow to them. What have I done, sir? I asked, trying to load the word, sir, with as much sarcasm as I could to indicate how I felt inside. Mr. Aziza fingered his bulbous nose, a part of his body which had been the butt of many a teacher's joke. He was known to love food more than anything else, and one female teacher had once said that most of what he ate went into his nose. You were away from school without permission for 4 days last week, Mr. Aziza finally declared. My anger, which a few minutes ago had reduced to a simmer, suddenly began to bubble like a pot of ogbono soup when the fire under it is poked. I said as calmly as I could, in those 4 days, sir, I almost lost my baby. I had already explained the circumstances to you. My baby became very ill suddenly. I had to rush him to hospital. For those 4 days, sir, he battled for his life. And so, Mr. Aziza intoned. Someone knocked at the door and I turned to see the second vice principal's bearded face as he opened it. I'll be back, a thin-lipped, hair-fringed mouth said and disappeared. The appearance of the bearded face was like a comic scene in a Shakespearean tragedy. Christmas and the New Year, a salaried worker was left with little money for the rest of January. And for those who had children in school, paying school fees and buying books and school uniforms for the new school year often became a nightmare. This year was worse for me because I and all the other teachers in the school were last paid in September the year before. I am a widow, sir, I pleaded with Mr. Aziza. I am the sole breadwinner for my family. Times are hard. My children cannot survive till the end of February without my next salary. Mr. Aziza said, I don't want to know, Mrs. Cheta Adu. My decision is final. He stood up, hitched his trousers, up with his elbows, and walked to a window on his right and peered out of it. He was a small, wiry man, the type Mother often told me to be beware of. Helpless, I stood watching him, a man known for his inflexibility. I knew from my colleagues' experiences that taking my case to the state school's management board would be futile as Mr. Aziza had ingratiated himself with the powerful and high-ranking officers of the board. As the principal of one of the elite schools in the state, he had helped their children admitted into his school even when the spoilt ones among them did not pass the entrance examination. I also knew that taking Mr. Aziza to court was out of the question. Where would get I the money for a lawyer? Besides, civil cases had been known to last for months or even years because of unnecessary and often deliberate court adjournments. Presently, I remembered that I should have given Rapulu some fever medicine. I ran into the bedroom in the flat and dashed out with a small bottle. Taking Rapulu in my arms, I gave him a teaspoonful of the bitter-sweet medicine and began to sponge him again. Mother-in-law soon dozed off. Poor woman, she must have had a trying day. She was a widow too and I had brought her to help me look after my children. Bless her, for what could I have done if she had refused my offer? Another reason why I brought her to live with me was to save costs. I used to send her money every month to supplement the meager proceeds from her farms. We had a late lunch of yam and raw palm oil. It was the last piece of yam in the house. I skipped supper because I wanted to make sure that the gari and the gussi soup which I had would last for 2 nights. The night was a long one. First, I lay awake for fear that Rapullu might become worse, but fortunately the fever did not persist. Then I reviewed all that I had gone through since I lost Afam, my husband who was an only child, in a ghastly motor accident a little more than a year before. He was a brilliant banker. We were at the university together, he studying banking and I mathematics. As luck would have it, we were posted to the same state for our National Youth Service. We became engaged at the end of our service and married shortly after. He died a fortnight after our 5th wedding anniversary and, ever since, my life had become an endless journey into the land of hardship and frustration. I had, under great pressure, spent all our savings to give my husband what my people and his had called a befitting burial, and what I saw as a senseless waste of hard-earned money. For the better part of the night, I worried over how I was going to pay the January rent, how I was going to feed my 2 sons and my mother-in-law, and what I was going to do if Rapullu became so ill that he had to be hospitalized again. I already owed 2 of my friends some money and could not see myself summoning up the courage to go to them again. I borrowed money again and for 2 long weeks I managed to feed my family, sometimes going without meals myself. I became irritable, and students complained that I was being too hard on them. My good-natured mother-in-law became equally touchy and nagged me incessantly. My 2 sons threw tantrums, spending a great deal of time crying. Soon I had no money left and no one to lend me more. I had reached a point when I had to do something drastic or allow my sons to die of hunger. On the 23rd of February, after school hours, I went to Mr. Aziz's office and once again pleaded with him to pay me. "You're wasting your time, Mrs. Chettaradu," he said. "I never change my mind. You will receive your salary on the 28th of February and not even 1 day earlier." I left his office and waited for him in the outer room. At 4 o'clock he left his office. I followed him to his house, which was situated near the school main gate, and he turned and asked me why I was following him. I remained silent. He opened the door and walked in. Quietly, I followed him into his sitting room and sat down without any invitation to do so. The room was sparsely furnished. A black and white television stood on top of the shelf next to a small transistor radio. Near them were a small dining room and a steel-backed chair. Mr. Aziza lived alone. His wife and 6 children lived at Onitsha about 100 kilometers away. Mr. Aziza turned and faced me. "Look, Mrs. Adu, you'll achieve nothing by following me like a dog. You may stay here forever, but you'll not make me change my mind." He disappeared through a door on the right. Presently, his houseboy walked into the room and began to lay the table. The smell of jollof rice wafted around my nostrils, reactivating in me the hunger which had been suppressed by anger, depression, and desperation. The houseboy finished laying the table and left. On impulse I left my chair, walked to the dining table and sat down on the chair beside it. Removing the lid on the plate, I stared at the appetizing mound of jollof rice. Then I grabbed the spoon beside the plate and began to eat. I ate quickly and not only with relish, but also with vengeance and animosity. I heard a door squeak and turned to see Mr. Aziza walk into the sitting room. His jaw dropped and his mouth remained open as he stared at me. "What do you think you're doing, Mrs. Chettaradu?" he bellowed, finding his tongue at last. Disbelief was written all over his face. I ignored the question and continued to help myself to the rice. I scooped a large piece of meat into my mouth, my cheeks bulging. Mr. Aziza strode to the table, snatched the spoon from me with his right hand and with his left snatched the plate of rice away from me. It was almost empty now. I rose from the chair and moved a little bit back from him, thinking he was going to hit me. He faced me, his eyes deadly. "Get out of my house, I say, get out." "Not until I receive my salary," I said calmly. Desperation had given me a form of courage I had not experienced before. Mr. Aziza barked at me. "Get out. Go to the bursar. Tell him I said he can pay you now." I said calmly, "He'll not believe me. Why not give me a note for him?" He scribbled a note, threw it at me and I grabbed it. Trying hard to suppress a smile, I said, "Thank you, sir," and left the room, still chewing the rubbery meat in my mouth. Please like, share, comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.